some backups at certain positions, because those guys, when they get in the flow, they should pick it up pretty fast.
How comfortable are you with the idea of what your starting five up there is going to look like right now?
I feel good about those guys. Yeah, we've got a number of linemen. I should have counted. There's probably 7 or 8 guys that have some experience, and certainly 5 guys that have quite a bit of experience. You know, like even Joe Mikulski, you know, he played in the Fiesta Bowl, so he's got quality experience. Even a guy that hadn't had a lot of reps. And we've got a number of guys there that have played in competitive games.
You got a guy that came in from military school, an All-American. He looked like a guy that'd been at military school in the spring. I don't know how much you've seen Weber, but he didn't look the same. After the summer.
Those guys that come in with Coach Glass, they change over a period of time. His best work's done over 18 months, but he's done remarkable things with young men that have even come in for 3 to 4 months. He's still got a ways to go to develop his body, but he's mentally tough. At some point, that's going to play a role, and we'll see how his strength levels maintain throughout August. And obviously, in the offensive line, that's a big part of the process.
You've got all 3 non-conference games at home. How much of an advantage is that, you think?
Well, it's a big advantage to play at home, and one, it's great for the students and the fans. It's awesome to be in that situation. You're always in a comfortable environment. This is a great place to play. It's a difficult place to play for other teams. So it is an advantage for us. When we have to go on the road, we've been in it long enough. I've been here a long time. Our coaches get it, so we have some discipline and toughness that's instilled in our players, and they understand the process. But being here and starting the season here and having a chance to get rolling is obviously an advantage.
How well are you able to get to know, like, say, the transfers, the 2 offensive linemen and DeAndre Jackson, right back? How much are you able to get to know and learn them over the summer, or is that really starting right now for you?
It's from this point on. I mean, I see him and visit with him a little bit, but you know, for me to say that I know them real well, certainly not football games. That happens over the next month. But I get updates on what's going on in off-season training and in the weight room and in conditioning. That gives me a pretty good indication of what's going on. And Coach Glass told us yesterday in the meetings that his team's in good physical condition. And if they weren't, he would tell us. So I feel pretty comfortable, particularly with linemen, that if they're in good physical condition, that they should hold up and do pretty well in August camp.
How physical are you going to try and get in fall camp?
It'll be real physical.
Coach, you've been doing this a long time. What has you excited about this year's group?
Well, I'm excited every year because they have a new group of guys. And so for me, and I don't know how many years it's been, 33 or 4, I'm not sure, even 18 as a head coach. I'm excited about the group and them coming together. They have to create their own identity. It's another thing that I mentioned this morning to them in the meeting, that this team, as what Coach Glass has said about their training in the offseason, like all the other teams, they have to create an identity for who they are, and they have to come together as a group. Coaches don't play, we're not in the games. They have to decide what their commitment level is going to be. So those are the fun things for me, is to watch them grow and develop. Like bed check. We don't do bed check. We don't curfew check. If they want to go out at night and not get their rest, or if they don't want to eat good food or hydrate, then they're not committed to themselves or not committed to the team. Eventually it'll catch up to them. These are all things that are part of the culture and the process here that we believe helps us win a lot of football games and have success on and off the field.
What do you think of the progress that the receiving corps has made after having so many freshmen kind of jump straight into their roles last season?
We should be in a better situation. I mean, anybody here that followed us last year is really scary. Playing up through the first 3 or 4 games where we couldn't do much on offense, and we were playing true freshmen at wide receiver, and guys are former high school players, and they're just out there getting lined up trying to survive, and that's not really a productive situation for an offense or a team. that's the hand that we were dealt last year. So the good news with that is a number of those guys have played quality reps in live situations. They shouldn't have, but they did. So that helps us a little bit, particularly in August preparation and then on game day.
Brennan is obviously the career-wise the most productive guy that you've got in that group. Is it possible in this offense today for an inside guy to end the season as your most productive guy, or is the ball just naturally going to go
Could
outside?
be, very well could be. Some of that, Scott's based on how they play us. And I've said that for a number of years. I don't know how many yards we can rush for in a certain game or pass for based on how they play us. So if they want to cover down on him in the slot and not do as much on the perimeter, then he's not going to get as many catches. If they're going to cheat on him and cover down on the perimeter, then he's going to get more catches. So the other team can really control that. We have a little bit to do with that based on where we line him up, if we move him, different things. But if we go into a game and a team says, well, we're not going to let you rush for 100 yards, and they play an overloaded box and a heavy front, and they're lined in the back end, they're probably not going to let us rush for 100 yards. We need to throw for 400. And the same is the opposite. If they want to back up and they want to cover down and play light in the box and say, we're not letting you throw passes, they can do that. So you never know. I think it's important, and offensively, obviously, Casey's been here with me a long time, so he understands we have to have availability and outside throws, inside throws, and to rush the football based on what the defense gives us. Quarterback's responsible for knowing what to do based on what they give us.
What do you expect the defense to look like, especially when you're so strong and deep up front? You mentioned the inexperienced part of it, but the front is loaded.
Yeah, so we led the nation in sacks last year, and just over 70% of our sacks were with four-man rush. So we all know that if you're able to get sacks with four-man pressure, you're in a really good situation because you have 7 guys that are covering pass. And hopefully we have enough depth that those guys can stay fresh. And when you roll those guys in, which we found, because they averaged playing last year about 42 snaps apiece, give or take, those first 7 or 8 guys. The main guys played about 40 to 42, and some of the other guys were playing in the 15 to 18 number snaps wise. Then they can stay fresh, and eventually offensive line, which they don't substitute, they get fatigued, and then just throughout the process of the game, you can get more sacks. And if we can get sacks and still play coverage, we're going to be in a good situation. So unlike some of the questions they asked about backup positions, at those positions, I feel pretty good about our ability to put pressure on quarterbacks and to try to create some confusion there and get guys down and get negative plays.
How far along is Trace? When you talk about the defensive front, what do you see from Trace right now and expect from him?
Trace is full go. Now we'll protect him in practice. We'll let him go through individuals for 3 or 4 days, and then the next 2 or 3 or 4 days we'll put him in some individual contact stuff, and then get a couple weeks out from the first game, we'll throw him in the team concepts. Guys that have had an injury, a significant injury, or multiple ones, we need to bring them back slow. My responsibility is to know who the individual is and say, how do we bring him along in August, and what will he do on game day? So when you talk about Trace Ford, Brendan Evers, guys that have had repairs, in my opinion, as we bring him along, particularly Trace, keep him healthy, keep him fresh, get him back into it, bring him along mentally, because when you get injured, it becomes a mental issue. It's just normal protocol. I'm going to guess when we snap it on game day, he's going to play hard. So we're going to bring him along slow, and the other guys that have had injuries, we'll bring them along slow, and then we'll turn them loose and we'll see how they play in the first game.
How high do you feel the ceiling is for this line then when you factor in getting Trace back into that rotation?
They're experienced, and they should be good pass rushers. They should be good defenders. We're very fortunate we have them. You know, years ago we made the transition and moved 3 scholarships from offense to defense. And last year, And hopefully this year you're starting to see that pay off, because those scholarship numbers we added have gone to the defensive line. So up to this point, it looks like we made a pretty good decision. Hopefully it'll play its way out this year just the same.
You mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
How did you come up with that number? How did you come up with 3 scholarships to move over?
Just me, I don't know, I wish I knew. We were 41, 41, 3. 41 offense, 41 defense, 3 special teams. We still have 3 special teams. So then we went 38, 44. It gave us a chance to add a couple defensive linemen and then a cover guy, and just the number we came up with. And I say me because offensive and defensive coaches don't want to give up numbers. So that's where I have to say this is what we're doing and then walk out, and no more discussion.
Was that hard for you as an offensive guy that you've been your whole career?
Not really, because as I've said for a number of years now, certainly I'm raised as an offensive guy, but I'm for defense, stopping people first.
Coach, does that help your special teams, the fact that you've gone the defense route?
Yeah, because those guys that we bring in can help us on special teams. All those safeties and cover guys certainly. And then, we have some of the defensive linemen protecting punt and things. And our Leos can cover in punt and do some things in punt return. So they give us some advantages from a number standpoint.
Unusual to ask about it, but you got Hembro back, your deep snapper, and he's probably been the best in school history. So how much of a luxury is it to have a guy like that where you don't even really think about it?
Well, nobody ever thinks about snappers and holders until you don't have one. People just take for granted that it's all going to just function and be smooth, and that's not true. So those discussions, those questions never come up until if something happens, and then the question is who's going to do it. We've been very lucky here to have, for years and years and years, deep snappers and holders who are very disciplined. They train themselves essentially. They work out on their own. They go over here during practice and they have their own drill work. Nobody watches them. And Hembro's been fantastic for us. And so we're in a great situation with our special teams, that snappers, punters, holders, those guys, kickers. We're in a good situation with those guys.
You've got 2 starting pitchers returning. Is that kind of an open competition this fall? Or?
It'll be interesting to see what happens in August. We've got 2 good kickers. And, Alex had an unfortunate situation a couple years ago, and Tanner comes in and kicks well, and Alex didn't really feel comfortable last year, in my opinion. From what I've been told, he's had a really, really good summer. So we let him kick. They kick the same number of kicks every day, and we let him kick. We'll see what happens.
How did you see Alex kind of deal with that adversity that he faced last year?
Well, Alex is very disciplined and very mentally tough, and he's the same all the time. He's a very unique person. He was some kind of a national award winner in skateboarding or surfing or something, or whatever some kind of surfing, slalom or something. Then he got into another sport, some extreme sport, and was good enough to play at a national level. Then he gets into kicking and he does it. So he's very disciplined and very mentally tough.
You mentioned the second string quarterback role. What do you see from Gunner and Garrett kind of vying for that position behind Spencer?
Well, they're going to go and get their reps and compete. One thing that we've done here since COVID, what COVID taught us was the importance of everybody getting the same number of reps. In years past, I'm somewhat repeating myself now, but in years past, 1s and 2s got work. 1's got the most, 2's got 80%, 3's got probably 10%. And then when COVID hit, we didn't have any idea who was going to be able to play. So all 3 units got the same number of reps. And then after August camp, I realized, wow, all of our young guys have really improved by getting the same number of reps as our 1s. So they'll switch off and rotate and get reps, and they'll get the same number of reps for preparation for the first game.
When you look at the tempo that you played with in the second half of the Fiesta Bowl, based on health and comfort level with this offense right now, is that kind of the ideal example of what this offense can be, that fast-paced?
Well, we always want to play fast. We've done it for a long time now, right? And that's what we want to do. But we also have to consider consider what situation we're in. Like early in the year last year, we were playing freshman wideouts and we're just trying to get lined up. So speed became a non-factor. And then fatigue becomes a factor when you have young kids. So if our maturity level at the positions give us good numbers, and then up front our health is good, Spencer can play fast. That's the advantage we have with him. He's become a magician with our offense over his number of years. Playing fast is the responsibility of the quarterback. Okay, and so if we stay healthy, it gives us an opportunity. Now, sometimes we take into consideration who we're playing and what we think matchups are, different things like that. But we would like to play fast.
You said in the podcast with Dave a few weeks ago, you think the tempo across the conference is going to look more like it did a few years ago when people were going crazy.
Guessing. I don't have any documentation. That's just me guessing. The guy at OU wants to play fast. I think the guy at Tech wants to play fast. I've been told Kansas State's playing fast now. So that number's going up. And if that's true, we're circling back like we do all the time to the way it used to be 4, 5, 6 years ago, where there was a lot of track meets. Now defenses in this league have gotten better at stopping those guys. So we're going to find out how it's all going to pan out. The last 2 or 3 years, nobody really played fast in this league other than us. From what I remember, Tech did a little bit. But if these teams that I think are going to try to play fast all the time, it'll be interesting to see how the defenses in this league adjust.
Hey, Coach, is part of that possibly because could the transfer quarterbacks we're seeing across the league play a role in that in terms of the decision to play faster and go more spread? Do you think that plays a role in it? Or no?
It could be. What it could do is tell you can't. If you don't have the right guy and you're trying to play fast, it won't look good, in my opinion. Now, the coordinators, the guy they brought in from at OU, his history is to play fast. And then Tech, with what they're doing, the guy they brought in, I think is from Western Kentucky, is that right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they do. So it's more so that guy than the quarterbacks. Our history at Oklahoma State, and I can only speak for us, the quarterback could prevent you from doing that real quick.
2 more questions for Coach, then we got to go to practice.
It's an interesting point, though, isn't it? About the new quarterbacks, you've got Martinez, who was Nebraska to K-State now. JT the guy who was at SC's at West Virginia. JT Daniels, I think, is what we're talking about. And then Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. That's kind of makes things fascinating, doesn't it, around the league? I mean, I know you know what you have here.
It's kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's circling back based on some experienced guys that understand how to. But this is the future. The future is quarterbacks migrating from one team to the other, and how fast can you implement them in your system. And there's just not a lot of patience at that particular position to develop based on what the latest fad is with movement, transfer, and portal. At that position, that is the position that started this. If you go back and look, I forgot the young man's name that was at Georgia that went to Ohio State. It's been 5, 6 years ago now. I don't remember his name. Who?
Justin Fields.
Yeah, right. And he's in the NFL somewhere probably. So when was that, 4 or 5 years ago? That kind of started it. He filed for a waiver, got a waiver, went up there, and then they started bouncing around. Well, now it's just common. You see it all the time. You're going to see that like crazy. And so you're going to, I think eventually in your top 40 schools in the country, you might have as many as 12 to 15 quarterbacks that were at a different school the year before that are playing a considerable amount of time at a new school. Guys don't want to stay in an organization if they think they're a backup.
Right.
They don't want to stay there.
Speaking of quarterbacks, you got 2 guys in Canada that are playing a big role. Taylor's starting for Edmonton, and Drew is the short yardage guy from Winnipeg.
Yeah,
It's
they're
pretty
having
cool
fun.
to have 2 Canadian quarterbacks.
It is. We've been very lucky around here. We got guys scattered everywhere, and it's cool. I didn't even know it, but I was off somewhere and flipped the TV on, and they were on there, and I can't keep up with where they're all at, and I didn't realize that was who they were. And then somebody said, "Hey, that's so and so playing on TV." So it's cool for those guys to be able to, if they're young and not tied down, they can move around and play a little ball. That's what they want to do. That's good for them.
Thanks, Coach.